You don't need a massive audience to make a massive impact. You need the right message in the right hands. Robin Colucci has helped authors land 6 and 7-figure book deals. And in this episode, she reveals the truth about what it really takes to write a book that moves markets. And truthfully, it applies to every entrepreneur who does any marketing. Everyone wants to write a book, or maybe you've thought about it or wondered if you could or you couldn't, but very few understand the difference between writing to serve their ego and writing to serve the world. Hey guys, I'm back today with a dear friend of mine, and I have a guest who has directly impacted some of the most influential thought leaders in the world. Robin doesn't just help people write books. She helps them write the right books, the ones that cut through the noise, the ones that actually get published, and the ones that matter. And here's the news. Everything that she talks about applies to you, even if you don't ever want to write a book and you've ever done marketing in your life. And if this is the first time here for you, welcome to the Mind of George show. This is where we cut through the noise and get real about what it takes to build something meaningful in your business and in your life. No tactics, no hacks, no sleazy strategies that make your soul feels like it needs a shower. Just honest conversations about aligning who you are with what you do and scaling it in the process. If that's you, you're in the right place. And in today's episode, we talk about why most entrepreneurs approach books the wrong way. We go deep into messaging, clarity, all the myths around publishing, and what it really means to write something that lasts beyond your lifetime. And whether you publish a book or not, it's the same way that we should be looking at our marketing, our messaging, our emails, our social posts, because you will walk away knowing if you're actually ready to write a book or to share that message, and if you are, how to do it right. Robin is an absolute genius when it comes to books. She's a sought after book coach. She's a publishing strategist, and she has helped clients land deals with all the major publishing houses, Penguin, HarperCollins, Simon Schuster, and more. She has an incredible company called World Changing Books and has 30 plus years of experience helping people like us, entrepreneurs, speakers, and visionaries, turn their ideas into shelf-worthy books that actually make an impact and get published. And let's be honest, we've all seen them or we've read them, but there's a lot of people that are writing books just to say that they did. Robin shows you how to write a book that isn't just read, but it's remembered. And if you're someone with a big message inside of you, this conversation will challenge you, it will help clarify you, and maybe even convict you to, at minimum, take these things and apply it into your marketing. So we talk about why write what you know is terrible advice. The biggest publishing lies that keep authors or potential authors stuck, and truthfully, how to know if and when you're actually ready to write a book. So if you've ever wanted to write a book, thought about writing a book, want to write a better book, or just want to increase the impact of your messaging and your marketing, this episode will be a blueprint for you. And so I'm stoked to share it with you. So let's dive in with the absolutely incredible Robin Colucci. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. Newsflash, I already learned a new word, auspicious, I believe, but I still have no idea what it means. But that just kind of gives you some insight into today's incredible guest. But I've had the pleasure of getting to know this incredible woman. She has a team member who I love dearly. Shout out Asia. If you're listening to this, I'm sending you love, girl. But Robin is like one of the most interesting people. And I mean that with like the most amount of love possible, because I love our conversations. And truthfully, I could have talked to her for 2 hours without hitting record and my bucket is full, because she can be known as someone that could be a book coach or a visionary mentor or a strategist for somebody to turn their expertise into a legacy in the world. She could be known as the woman who has a Broadway play, which I learned about today. She has a BA in journalism, so she's going to ask critical questions, and I feel like the magnifying glass is always around me, so my stats and data is here, to a master's in spiritual psychology, but she really has this innate ability to help people create and publish world-changing books, which we are going to get into. But how to really be known, how to leave a legacy, and how to understand that a book lives forever, even if we don't, and how to really capitalize on that. And I have not had a dedicated episode to books, to publishing, to our gifts to who should write a book, who shouldn't write a book. And a lot of you know I am an author, but of a cookbook, because I just refuse to sit down and write the next one. But, Robin will eventually peer pressure me into it, I'm sure. But she is a breath of knowledge. And I don't think I can do this intro any more justice other than just welcome her to the show. So, Robin, officially welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, George, for having me. And
You're so welcome.
coincidentally, I would like to go ahead and provide the definition for auspicious, because I believe it's
Oh,
very
auspicious. Yep.
relevant. Auspicious means a sign of good things to come.
Mm. How did I not know that word? I'm going to use that word at least 30 times today. I'm going to go order a coffee. I'm like, oh, it's like just an auspicious moment. See, here's the funniest part, and I'll own this in front of everybody and you as well. Like, you get this, but as somebody like who speaks for a living and keynotes and coaches, there was this one season where I heard somebody use the word pontificate, and I thought I knew what it meant. And I never looked it up. I just started using it and slipping it into conversations. I went a good 2 years using that word incorrectly before someone's like, you do realize that's not what it means? And I was like mortified. And I was like using it in complete opposition of the real definition. And so I've learned my lesson now to either
beautiful.
ask or to look it up.
Yes, the dictionary.com is our friend.
Oh yeah. Well, ChatGPT has made it a lot easier for me, but I know, like, if you were ever editing the manuscript for like my book on mindset or something along those lines, you'd probably be texting me a couple times a day, or like, this is the word that you used. Did you bother to look this up? I'm like, no, I was just flowing.
You wouldn't be alone, because one of my most common comments when I'm editing a client's document is this what you meant? Which includes the edit to what they said. So
I feel like I need you in real life with me to like walk around in my coaching conversations and be like, I'm like, I think they got it. And they do most of the time, because the energy sends a lot of, clarity and context. But then after you'd be like, hey, George, 4 of those words, wrong situation. And I'm like, totally fine. Because my new one, and this will happen, and I just love that we're getting laughs out of the way. I also realize that we all have flavors, and people on this podcast, I love all of you listening, will call me out, because there's 2 other ones. Number one is somebody finally, after like 4 months, called me out and said, did you know regardless means the same thing as irregardless? And I was like, oh, and then I was at an event and I was like, wait, do I say irregardless on the podcast? And like 50 hands went up, and I'm like, and none of you told me? Like, none of you told me. And like rewriting those neural pathways over time. Yes. And then the other one I'm currently obsessed with, which I'm sure everyone is aware, is non sequitur. I don't know why, but I change subjects all the time, but I love the ring of that one. So there's our, what is the study of words? Is it like etymology or something like that?
Etymology, yes.
Etymology, there we go. See?
Which is different than entomology, which is the study of insects. So you need to be careful.
I was going to say, so enta is insects and eta is words.
Yes.
See?
English is not an easy language.
No.
English has a lot of really weird things about it. So
yeah.
We all, I mean, I still am learning also.
Which I love. Which I love. And I love your heart. I love your passion for this. I love the laughs already, because I'm learning as well, which, I think it's time to move into one. And I told everybody, I told Robin before that, books are this really interesting thing, because they've been around our whole life. We pick up books that are, 600 years old. Like, my favorite book to read is my Bible, and, given everybody's conspiracy on it. But like, there's like these things that outlive us. And I've been in this world for a hot minute, and I've heard some of the greatest myths or contradictory statements when it comes to books. And you are somebody who publishes books. You have authors who have gotten like $6 million of advances, been on New York Times lists. We were told years ago that with the rise of self-publishing, that like books were dead. And I want to hit some of those myths and get like your take on them. And one of the biggest ones that drives me nuts, but I would love your thoughts, is your book is your business card. Your book is your business card.
We have this in common, because this is one of the myths that drives me the most crazy as well. And when I speak, because this almost always comes up when I'm speaking, and somebody says, well, isn't your book just a big business card? I'll stop and I'll poll the room and I say, just want to ask you a quick question. How many business cards have you taken to bed? And of course, no hands, like that nobody has an answer because no one's ever taken a business card to bed. And then I say, okay, how many of you have at least one book by your bedside table right now? And every hand goes up. And I think that the reason I say to bed is that what the idea of a book being a big business card misses is really the most important reason to write a book, especially if you have a business and you're wanting to grow your business. And part of having that growth is having a book. The biggest factor of why it works is your ability, or doesn't work, is how well you do at creating intimacy with the reader.
Yeah.
It's about intimacy. When people say you need to write in a conversational tone, a lot of people misunderstand that and think it means you should write like you talk. This is not true. The conversational tone is you and I are having a one-on-one conversation. You are writing to a reader. You're not writing to all you readers out there. Because when you are writing to everyone, what you really are doing, you're not writing to anyone, you're writing at them. So the value of writing a book, and think about it, in today's world, what is the number one challenge that anybody trying to sell anything has in today's world? What's the number one barrier to getting that opportunity?
The number one barrier for me would be finding the people and connecting with them.
Yeah, and getting their what?
The word that came to mind is like buy-in, getting their attention. And then getting their investment.
You have to first get their attention. And you have to hold on to their attention long enough for them to know what you have to offer.
Yep.
A book is the only way left that you can literally get 6 hours of undivided attention from your ideal potential client. But if you think about it like a business card, you will fail.
Okay. We out here now. I'm so ready for this conversation because I love this. So first I came up with a new, like, books are the adult's bedside buddy. Like, that's it, right? They're not a business card. It's like your whoopee, right? Like, it's your favorite stuffy adult version. And
exactly. If we're not reading them in bed, we're reading them in our favorite chair or in the bathroom. But we 100%. Are reading our books in our most intimate places, and only books that generate intimacy belong there. Right. And if you're not giving that experience to the reader, they will kick that bed they'll kick that book right out of their bed.
Well, yeah. And oh man, I want to open so many loops on that. But before I do, I also want to say that, for everybody listening to this, just even your definition of how a book isn't a business card, like how to communicate with somebody, the purpose of creating intimacy, speaking to somebody, not at people, is also the same exact principles where most people struggle in their marketing. It's where they struggle to communicate, right? Mm-hmm. Where, when you're communicating in, let's just call it logic, like here's the 3 things to do or the 5 things to do. What you're missing is that emotional connection, which creates that intimacy and ownership that makes somebody want to actually pursue that thing. And so the correlations are huge, which I love. And by the way, the 2 things that stood out the most to me are the framing it of like, do you take a business card to bed? That's so big, right? Where it's like, even in marketing, people look at like, what's the first and last thing, unfortunately, most people are on? It's their phone in a very intimate moment when they're laying in bed. And I also love the big call out, which is like, where else in the world of 3-second scrolls can you create 6 hours of undivided attention, or even 30 minutes or 45 minutes where You can't. Even Netflix can't. They have to break it up into
Right,
20.
exactly. Because one thing you cannot do while you're reading is look on your phone. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot play on your phone while you're reading. You can play on your phone while you're watching Netflix. You can play on your phone while you're. I mean, and when I think about it in terms of scale, like what people spend for 30 seconds of a Super Bowl ad,
5 to 10
where
million
you
bucks.
maybe you get partial attention, probably almost $30 million for 30 seconds of a Super Bowl ad, and all of a sudden becoming an author is really a bargain because
Yeah.
because you're going to reach a targeted audience who already knows they're interested in what you want to write, and then you're going to have 6 hours of undivided attention if you've written the book in a way that keeps them reading, which is building intimacy and providing value.
I'm obsessed with the framing of this. Like, by the way, I'm just going to own this publicly. I don't know when, but I swore, I was like, I'll never write a book again. This is why I have a podcast, right? I did my stint, and now, like, I know there's like 8 or 9 books in me, and like this is like literally changing my perspective as we speak, of
Yay.
like, I
I'm
think
excited.
most of the
Yeah.
hurdles that I also see people facing when it comes to like wanting or the desire to write a book, right? Where I'm not going to sell that many copies, or, people aren't going to read it, or it's not for
Mhm.
everybody. And
Yeah.
even
I
this,
hope.
the framing of this for intimacy and connection changes that.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, the kiss of death in publishing, if you're like, imagine you're looking for a literary agent or a book deal, and you manage to get an agent's attention long enough for them to say, well, what's your book about? Or who's your book for? Who's your
Mm-hmm.
book for? And you say everyone, the conversation's over.
Game over.
Game over.
Game over. Yeah.
One strike and you're out, right? Yeah. So yes, your book topic should be targeted to your ideal client and what they already know that they want. And you have to meet them where they are. And then you go get them and you take them by the hand and you lead them to where they need to be. So yeah, there's a lot to it. And really, not all books, most books don't sell a lot of copies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the way to look at that is strategically. Um, I had one client, for example, who was a consultant for M&A transactions, so mergers and
That's
acquisitions.
mergers and acquisitions. Yeah.
Yes, and so he would help facilitate these on both sides, right, a buyer seller, and I helped him write and self-publish a book, and this is like over 10 years ago. Um, on called Due Diligence Secrets. And what he did was he provided like what both sides should be looking for in one book. Because he's like, if whatever side you're on, you better know what both sides need, which I thought was brilliant. And and his whole plan and strategy, which worked out very well for him, was just to mail it to leads that wanted to know more. But when you figure every contract was probably worth at least 6 figures to him,
Mm-hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
many books does he really need to sell? So I think a big mistake people make is when they're looking at their publishing goals, they're thinking about what the ego wants versus what the business needs.
Preach it. Preach it.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. I
And
love
that's how
I
they
love
get
that.
yeah, and that's how they get sucked into these like phony bestseller programs and, pouring tons of money into doing things with marketing that maybe just aren't appropriate for what they need for their results. I have clients who are New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestsellers who needed that distribution to achieve their goals. But you know, a lot of people, especially if you're writing on something more niche, you don't need that. So it's really about looking at it strategically and figuring out, well, what is the best publishing route? How many books, how many people do you need to reach to achieve your goals? And sometimes it's hundreds of thousands, but sometimes it's a lot less than that. you know, and and a lot more attainable, a lot easier to attain. Yeah.
Yeah, and as a consultant on my side, I could say that like there's probably less than 0.5% whose strategy should just be volume, because really like the way that this is framed is really it's a strategic investment, but it's not only for the short term, it's for the long term of the
Mhm.
business, and it's a
Yes.
tool, right? And I love that positioning of it.
And even if you if to really achieve what you're what's most appropriate and what's, the pinnacle for you, even if you do need to sell a lot of books to do it, it really doesn't it should not be your primary source of revenue that you get from the fact that you have a book, because it's
Yeah.
what you do with that where, it's a lot higher. You're going to make a lot more than your cut of what your publisher is all ending up with for the book. The overhead to produce and market a book is extraordinary, even for the publisher. When people say, "Oh,
Yep.
publishers, they only give you 10% or 15%," I'm like, well, they lose money on 90% of the books they buy,
I was just going to say that.
right? The 10% that make money are paying for all the others that didn't, and on top of that, there's still overhead there. And so I don't begrudge publishers for taking their their high percentages, because they're also taking on the primary risk. But that said, even if you're self-publishing and you're taking all the book sales, that should still only be a small fraction of what you're able to generate because you have the book.
Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
look at it, and I'll share this publicly. I don't know if I've ever talked about this in the podcast, but as somebody who wrote a 22-week New York Times best-selling cookbook, right? 22
That's right.
weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
That book opened more doors than it paid for doors for me to build in my house.
There
Okay.
you go.
And
Yes.
I I did the math. And when I looked at from like inception to, I'd say, a year after, not even a year after publishing, just from inception of idea to publish, I made the equivalent of a Starbucks manager when it came back. And
Off the
I'll be
book directly. Off the book directly.
off the book directly. And I'm
Yes.
so glad that you made that call out,
Mhm.
because even then I had a little bit of the like, oh, when it becomes a New York Times, it's going to be on there forever. But then I luckily got to consult some publishers and help with a lot of other books. And they're like, hey, George, we're going to let you under the hood as well. And I got to see, and I remember one, and I can't say her name, and it's a giant publishing. And she's like, George, I buy 200 to 500 books for one of them to make our money back on all
Yeah.
of them. Right.
Mhm.
And, when she looked at my book scan numbers and we sold multiple six figures in books, and she's like,
Yeah.
you're in the top, like top percentage. And I was like doing the math, but then like looking at long term, right, for the opportunities that it created and all of it. And it actually leads me to a question, because I love the way that, and you mentioned it a minute ago, but when I did my book, self publishing wasn't really a thing,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Like my
Mhm.
book came out, and I don't know, I'll never forget it because I got the New York Times call, but on June 10th of 2014,
Uh-huh.
right? So like you kind of had like an option or two, but not like we
Yeah.
have today.
No,
And
yeah.
in this conversation of like thinking about writing a book, and I have a lot of questions
Mhm.
about that for people, but the investment also isn't as great as it used to be. There's not this barrier of entry to where you can strategically decide, am I going to hybrid?
Mhm.
Am I going to self publish? Am I going to
Mhm.
traditional publish to still
Yeah.
create that resource?
Mhm. Yeah. There are a lot more options, and, there and many of them, and they're viable options. The traditional route has the highest barrier to entry, but it also has the best distribution. And there's also a gravitas to
Mhm.
having a publishing house say, we believe in this book enough that we're putting our name on it too. And I especially think this is important when you're writing something that's highly controversial, or
Yeah.
uh, maybe, there's just maybe highly technical, but you're trying to bring a technical idea to a mass market audience and give it relevancy. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why the gravitas makes a difference. There's sometimes where the distribution makes a difference. Sometimes if you are just a person who already has high visibility and high credibility, sometimes it would be a bad look to go self-publish, when you have a track record for success at a certain level. Um, it can seem like, well, what happened? Why couldn't he, why didn't they get a book deal? What did something change? We always look at the whole picture when we're talking with clients about publishing routes. And again, though, it's always strategic. So, so traditionally published is great. Self-publishing, also great. I think if there's one myth I would bust about self-publishing,
Yeah.
it's that one of the advantages is 100% creative control. I have seen some of the ugliest books imaginable because the author had 100% creative control. So what I would say is, if you're self-publishing, please hire someone whose book covers look like they're published traditionally and let
Hmm.
them do their job,
Hmm.
please.
I'm gonna
uh,
add a note on that as just real quick, and then you can keep going. But I have to add some icing on that cake because
okay.
I have helped over 20 people do book launches and book things, right? And to your point, having 100% creative control is important in maybe the content of the book, like how you're
Yeah,
sharing, how you're
sure.
speaking, your authenticity. But the two biggest areas, and I would love your thoughts on them, cover, being one of them,
Hmm.
book layout and structure
Thank you.
being the
Yes.
other.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. And here's the problem that, see, the problem is you and I, having had some direct experience with traditional publishing, we know what's wrong with it when we look at it.
Hmm.
Ugly cover, layout, the gutters are too small, the text is going all the way into the spine, the one page isn't, the top of one page doesn't match the top of the other page. And these are all things that I've seen too many times in self-published work. The problem is the reader doesn't know why. So the reader just feels like something's wrong
Like
and they
something's wrong.
don't know what it is. And guess where they're going to land? There's something wrong with the book. There
Yep.
might be something wrong with the author. Something feels off to me. Maybe I can't
Yep.
really trust what this person's saying. So even my clients who self-publish, I send them to my friend who I've been known for 14 years, and I send all my self-publishing people. Can I give her a plug here?
Yeah. Please go.
Okay, Polly Latofsky at My Word Publishing is the primo for self-published authors and very reasonable in her pricing. And she knows, that when she's working with my clients, if they try to get her team to do an ugly cover, she just calls me and says they're doing it, because she knows if I see an ugly cover, there's going to be a whole different thing. So, but yeah, the 100% creative control is not a thing, because the other thing I think people misunderstand is I have never ever worked with a publisher, and I've done dozens of traditionally published books over the years, and I have never once had a publisher come and say, "Oh, we don't want you to say that," or "No, you're not allowed to express yourself that way." Not once.
Hmm.
Now, we've always turned in appropriate content, but again, I don't think the publishers are trying to control the creativity of their authors. I think they're trying to prevent lawsuits, right? Or or make sure that what you're submitting is factual and yours, and you know decent. But I've never had a publisher ever try to, significantly change something. They've had sometimes ideas like, hey, have you thought about adding a little something here? Or, but just, but it's never been heavy handed, and it's always been a collaboration. So
Yeah.
that's a myth too, that publishers like want to just rip control from you. And they wouldn't have bought your concept if they had that intention. You're
Yeah.
probably not that big of a figure that they would, they would. want just to get your name or something, it's just one of those fantasies that people who are promoting, self-publishing or vanity presses say to make people want to do business with them. I think that's where that came from.
Yeah, I'm going to tie a few of these together because you said it at the beginning of the show, and I think it's really important. Like, the thing is, like, as me being an author, what I can tell you is, like, as a parent, that book felt like the closest thing to my baby
Yes.
that I've
Yes.
ever had because of the amount
Mhm.
of endowment that I had, because of how much effort went into it. And I remember, I'll call them spicy calls with my publisher,
Mm.
where I was dug in and I'm like,
Mhm.
no, no, no. But it's because my ego was
Mhm.
very invested. And then eventually, like, I saw the other side and we went that way. And I was like, oh, I'm really glad that I listened. And I
Beautiful.
did that. Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think, to your point, and you said this, like, and I love how this is framing, books, whether you traditionally publish or self publish, which I'll ask you
Mhm.
some questions about, like, who should and shouldn't write a book. But,
Mm.
number one, the goal of any book you create is to create intimacy with the reader.
Yes. Yes.
And creating intimacy with the reader is not just about the words on the page. It's about the timeline and the context and the story and the layout and a lot of pieces to where, like, you can have the best ingredients ever, but Michelin star chefs use them in a certain order to be able to create the same dish that a restaurant down the street can't recreate. And
Yes.
that's really important.
And the presentation, right? We eat with our eyes,
Yep.
right? And so when we and what, you can't judge a book by its cover. Well, people do.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you
Right?
look at Hudson in the airport. I mean, the entire thing walking through, and I fly a lot, right? And I'm like,
Y
as an author and somebody who's done this, like, I look and I can tell you what's going to be on the shelf, right? And
Yeah,
it's no different than people shopping. Like, and as much as I hate to admit it, I used to be a wino. People, they make pretty labels for wine bottles
that's
to
right.
make people pick up that bottle of wine. It's not the
Yeah,
best wine, but it's the
yeah,
prettiest wine.
yeah. And, interestingly, like, you can pay a fee to have your book in Hudson's, if
Oh,
no
they're
matter who.
expensive. We're doing it
Right.
right now, but the publisher paid it.
Right, but what I'm telling you is that means there's actually quite a few self-published books in Hudson's.
Yep.
And so if you can, as an exercise next time you're in airport, just see if you can guess which ones, and I bet you can.
Yeah. You 100% can.
And not
100%
all
can.
self-published books look self-published, right? Like I said, I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to which publishing route, except for one, which is the vanity press. And usually vanity presses call themselves hybrid. So we can get into that if you want, but because that's the one predatory model. But,
Mhm.
but otherwise I'm pretty agnostic, and it's really about what is best strategically for the author in that case, um,
Mhm.
versus the how you frame the book should be what's going to be the most interesting to your ideal client
Yeah.
and
And,
compelling.
I
Yeah.
love all the strategy. Like, it's actually, I love the framing of this. Like, I've never heard it framed this way. And it's really, like, refreshing. Obviously, you and I have talked, but, like, it's
Yeah.
like hitting me again. I think about it, and this might be, like a random question, but I think about everybody who listens to this podcast, right? I have some people that have self-published books, some people probably have published books, some people, like, I could never write a book. Why would I ever write a book? And I'm, like, curious from your perspective, like, who should or shouldn't write a book?
Well, I have a really strong opinion about who shouldn't, and it's actually my protective nature that has me feel so strongly. My mama tiger comes out with this one, and who shouldn't write a book is someone who thinks that writing a book is going to solve a financial problem for
Yep.
them. Who shouldn't write a book is someone who needs a book to succeed to be okay financially. That is an absolute number one no game, game over again
Yep.
for now. Um, on top of that, and very close to it, but not identical, but I feel equally strongly, is you should never write a book so that you can have a business. So even if you're paying your bills right now, but you're thinking, hey, this happens a lot with people who leave corporate and they're going to do consulting and they think, well, I'm going to write a book first and I'm going to use that to get clients so I can have a business. And every time I have a conversation with someone usually this is a sales conversation, and I will say, no, you cannot. I strongly advise against that. And here's the biggest problem with it. So first of all, if you're writing a book to have a business, that probably means you don't have direct experience with, like, you're not a consultant yet. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to write about your experience with corporate, which is different than you having experience in your own business. So you're not actually, and you don't really have, even if you like ran a program in a corporation, you haven't proven that you can get buy-in as a consultant going into a corporation. Because of course there was buy-in, because the CEO said, we're doing this and you're leading it, which is 70% of the battle when you're going in as a consultant. So whether you're paying your bills or not, writing a book to have a business is backwards. And the biggest problem with it, and I think the thing that's scariest about it, is if you write a book to have a business, and we're probably talking, at least an 18-month process, right?
Yeah.
From the time you start to the time it's self-published, because no publisher will publish you to have a business with a book. But from your conception of the idea to when you get it self-published, for those 18 months, you are going to feel productive. You are going to tell yourself, I am growing my business by writing my book. And I'm going to wager a bet. And George, I know you'll understand this one, because I'm sure you run into this obstacle with, having to coach your clients. What you will be avoiding is sales. Having conversations with people who will mostly say no to you about doing business with you. And this is the danger of it, because not only are they spending maybe up to $40,000-$60,000 or more writing a book to have a business, but what they're not doing is having sales conversations and actually bringing money in, because they're telling themselves they're being productive and this is going to help them grow their business. And I'm going to tell you right now, put down the pen and pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I'm so glad that you've said all of these kind of myths and who should not. Those are the biggest ones. And truthfully, I mean, as a marketer and an internet entrepreneur, the things that is the most predatory about this industry is they go after people and promise them your
Mhm.
book will build your business. Your
Yeah.
book will save your business, will get you XYZ. And it's
Mm-mm.
not true.
It is not true. It is not true. A book is a great tool for an existing business. I wrote my book. I hybrid published because, frankly, I didn't have the platform to get a book deal, and I I had a lot of experience, but I wasn't really making. I think I was only making $40,000 a year when I wrote it. Um, the year after it came out, I 5x'd that, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
because I sold a lot of books. I wrote the book very specifically as a primer for my clients. I wrote my book for my clients so I could hand it to them when they signed up, so that I could stop hearing myself saying the same things over and over again and wasting our first 2 coaching calls giving them information that I give everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what that did was it 5x'd the value that I was providing. So I was able to raise my rates accordingly, because now we weren't wasting time on the basics. We were able to get right into the high level stuff where they were paying me for my expertise. I mean, one little thing that, you keep talking about strategy. Well, I, I had a 10-year hiatus from the publishing world, where I founded, built, and sold a personal fitness training studio. So I'm a rare editor in that way, that I actually understand business and strategy, and I have been through a full cycle, which I think is part of why I'm able to help my clients at that level.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's so it's like I just made myself a better coach by the act of creating the book. I became better at communicating the value that I bring. I got better at having the right story handy to illustrate a point for a prospective client, because it was already written. So I could say it very eloquently, not read from my book, but once you've written something down. The other thing that's really valuable, see, this is really the value in writing a book. It's not holding a book and saying, look at me, I'm an author. The value is it makes you a better expert.
Yep.
It forces you to interrogate your own ideas and ask yourself, is this really true? What are the exceptions? Or actually, if you're working with me, I'll force you to. But this is what it should do. So even if you're not working with me, this is what you should be doing. Everything you write, are there any exceptions?
Hmm.
Because the more that and is this what I really mean? Like, everybody who's writing a book, with or without help, you should write that, put it on your desk, like where you can see it. And every time you finish writing a paragraph, look down, is this what I really mean to say? Because usually the first time we try to say something, we didn't get it exactly right. And so I'm going, you better ask me
Oh,
another question, because I'll
I
never,
love
like,
you. I
there's
love you.
like, it's
I,
bottomless.
I love your rant. Like, truthfully, see, that's one. I say truthfully all the time. I'm always truthful. I'm just filling space. You're like, if I wrote that on a page, you'd be like, why do you keep saying truthfully? And I'm
Yes, I
so
would.
hyper aware of it talking to you. See, you're already helping me be a better author and a better expert in the process, because I'm so hyper aware of it now. These filler words where I'm like, just
Oh,
pause.
I
Just
write about
pause.
I call these verbal tics, and I write about it in my
Yes.
book. And what's funny is my verbal tic is the word so. So
Mm-hmm.
you will hear me say so over and over again, so that I can make sure that you understand exactly what I meant to say.
Mm-hmm. And
So
I've
you won't
become
be
so
confused.
aware. I've
So. Yeah,
become
and I realized, but I didn't realize my verbal tic was so until I wrote my book
until you
about
wrote.
verbal tics.
And I think there's so much credibility in what you're sharing, even if you're listening to this and you're not planning on writing a book, right? There's this
Mm-hmm.
review process where, like, going through the process of writing a book helps you become an expert, because you become aware, almost like an observer, of how
Yes.
you communicate and how things
Mm-hmm.
land and how you frame things. So it's like the reps of polishing, no different than speaking or coaching, but the same vein in podcasting, in creating videos, in
Yeah.
anywhere. Because really,
Mm-hmm.
the premise of a book is, how can we actively communicate with somebody in an asynchronous relationship?
Yeah,
And
and
most
that
of what we're all creating.
yeah, and that really goes back to writing at someone versus writing to them, because how many times do you see a speaker on stage who's talking at the audience versus talking to the audience, and the difference, the complete 180-degree difference in the feeling of what it
Yep.
feels like to be in that room with that person,
Yes.
and how much energy you have while you're listening.
Yes.
And it's true with podcasting, and it's true with the videos you make for Instagram. And it's like, are you talking at them or to them?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is another great thing about writing a book, is it translates to every conversation you have. It translates to sales conversations, right? If you write down a question for your reader that they should be thinking about before they act on whatever it is you're teaching, ask that question in the sales conversation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
especially if it's about, like, self-reflecting and helping them see themselves.
Yep.
Because then they know not only do you see them, that you're interested in them, that you want to see them better. So it just goes
Yeah.
on and on. Like just writing that's why author is the root word of authority.
Here we go. Etymology.
They're good. J. George. Woo!
I'll
I
give
love
myself a
this.
cookie later. Like
Get a
I'll
cookie.
go work out extra and I'll get a cookie. I'm catching my verbal tics, which it's so interesting though. Like to your point of like even the etymology of author being authority, right? Authority doesn't come by default. It comes through repetition, practice, and reflection, and then adjustment, right? And even on my verbal tics, I used to have some of the worst ones, right? And I've replaced them. Now I replace it with superlatives. That might not even be the right word, but it's felt right. Like truthfully, or, you know, one of the ones I used to say all the time was to be honest. And it implied I was lying to everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Any other time. Right. Or my favorite now, when I catch people say it, they're like, well, to be authentic. And I'm like, no, you either are or you aren't. There isn't
You're not putting on your authentic hat, are you?
And to even, you know, tie it back where like this level of, you know, reflection, whether it's writing your words or watching your videos, kind of dismantles our ego a bit to really be like, am I truthfully delivering this or being the expert in this or getting better at this? And I like love this conversation for it because it's happening live. And I hope all of you are laughing at me because I have no problem owning this all day. Now I'm going to call it my verbal tics. But I think it's so powerful because I know for me, similar to you, you know, I've been consulting for, I don't know, 20 years. And, you know, it took me a long time to start writing it down because I wasn't really sick and tired of being a broken record yet. But then the longer and longer I do it, the more models I have and the more ideas that I have. And then I was like, wait, what am I teaching? Like, I know so many things. I had to start writing them down and then I had to practice how I taught them. And then I had to test it on a group. And it's no different than like writing this chapter and then going through of like, is that really what you mean? Are there any exceptions to this? Are you speaking in absolutes? Because you can't, because none of us know.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's one to really watch out for. Are you assuming you can read the reader's mind? Because you've got to realize that writing a book is also, there's a psychology thing going on. And the reader is reading with their conscious mind, but they're also reading with their subconscious mind. So if you, and the subconscious mind's job is to keep you in stasis because it's kept you alive thinking the same way this whole time, and it doesn't want you to necessarily change your point of view. So if the author writes a statement that says, now I know right now you're thinking da 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 da, what does the subconscious mind do? And see, you don't know it's your subconscious. Go ahead.
That presupposition creates reactance. And immediately, if it doesn't land for you, you immediately then walls go up.
Subconscious mind goes, you don't know me. How dare you tell me you know what I'm thinking? You're just a blowhard, no good, so-called expert, and bye-bye. So even in how we phrase things, you know, if you're like me, you might have thought this, or if you're like a lot of my clients, maybe sometimes you feel this or you think this. Then the subconscious mind's like, well, maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm listening.
Yep. So
little things like that too. And you know, and people might think, well, I'll sound less authoritative if I'm, but there's a time to sound authoritative, but it's not when you're talking to the subconscious mind. And so you have to understand when you're writing, when you're talking to the rational conscious mind, and when you're getting into feelings, limiting beliefs, you know, hurts, that, like, you are talking to the subconscious mind, so you have to walk that very gently.
Yep.
And okay, my rant is continuing because I want to. Can I rant about something else
Oh,
that I hate?
rant.
Okay, this is so much fun. Um, so, and because everything we've been saying really leads up to this rant, which is the other thing I hate is write your book in 90 days, or even worse, write your book in a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And everything we've talked about so far is why.
Yep.
Because you can get it done, but there's no room for inquiry. There's no room for curiosity. There's no room for checking. Well, I think this is true. Maybe I should look. Is there any data on this? Should I look this up? Because as soon as you say most people, you better have a footnote by it.
Mm-hmm.
You better
It's
find a
really,
source,
it's
a
really,
study.
really true. And I even, there's so many parallels in all of this where we just by default make these assumptions. By default, we speak to people, we say things in videos, we push out a piece of content, or oh, I lost you.
Oh, I'm here. Can you
We're
not
gonna
see me?
pause. Oh,
Oh,
you're
I
here.
can
Okay,
see you.
you're
Yeah, I
here.
can see you.
So
I'm good.
we make these assumptions, and I even think about videos that I used to do versus like what I do now. I used to catch myself being like, well, everybody does this, or this thing happened, and it wasn't until somebody checked me on it that I realized like how damaging it was to my quote unquote authority and reputation.
Yeah.
And I look at books like they're a piece of art, right? And I think the only book that's ever finished is the one that you publish. But if you're going to publish it, you're leaving this mark in time where there is no going back. Like once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah.
And yes, you can make edits and you can do things like that, but you can't edit the perception of it if you really miss hard.
Yeah, and if it's been released, I mean, it's really a done deal. There's not many times, especially with a traditional publisher, there's not many times they're going to give you another round. So,
No,
can't think of one that I'm aware of, but yeah.
no,
So,
like, yeah, you get copy edits. I mean, they're still 11 years later finding, copy edits in my cookbook, but,
oh,
main,
it is, yeah. And it's, I am not a proofreader. I'll be the first to admit that. Like, I can get it to a point, but it takes a special kind of person to be able to catch all of those proof mistakes. And it really, like, when I got the galleys from my hybrid book, thank God it wasn't the done version, but I shared it with a woman who wanted me to refer her as a proofreader, and I'm like, here, take this. And she came back and she found 65 errors in my so-called proofread by the hybrid publisher book. This is, by the way, I've never seen that many errors come back from a traditional publisher's proofreader, just FYI. But anyway, I started referring to her immediately. So yeah, it takes a special kind of person to be a great proofreader. And I think there's like different personality types. Like a proofreader has to be super detail oriented. A developmental editor is more visionary. A line editor is kind of in between. You know, maybe not necessarily visionary, but good with structure. So I
yeah,
think that there's different skill sets. This is like if you're self-publishing and you're looking for help in all these areas, realize that you will never find the best of all in one person. And ideally the person who's like when we work with a client, and whether we're ghostwriting or coaching, before we turn it into the publisher, we send it to a partner of ours outside of our organization who proofreads it for us, who's never seen it. Because by the time it's ready for proofreading, I've read it so many times, I have what we call in publishing whiteout, which is you can no longer see errors. Like
yeah,
you've read it so many times, your mind is just filling in the blanks and it all looks perfect.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
remember it when I got that first doc back, and
Oh.
this might hurt you, but it was a cookbook, so it was a little different. And there were
Uh-huh.
125 recipes on almost 500 pages.
Oh
They're like,
yeah.
hey, we got your first round of edits. We need them done in the next 4 days. And I opened Microsoft Word, and there were 42,000 tracked changes. 42,000.
Oh man.
And I about had an aneurysm. And I'm like, when I shipped them the quote unquote manuscript, I was like, I'm done. The
Oh yeah.
publisher's got it. And then
Yeah.
7 rounds of those edits again. And then I did all 42,000. Like I marathoned for like 24 hours and 2.5 days. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. And then a week later, they're like, hey, we had another editor take a look at it. And I was
Yep.
like, how many do you have? And they're like, oh, it's going to go through this like 7 times. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, got it. So yeah, I've learned those lessons. There's
Yeah.
visceral PTSD in my body from that. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
where I was sitting on the
Mhm.
floor, what house I was in,
Crying, sucking your thumb.
and I was like, why did I
Rocking.
do this? Yeah, 100%. I was on caffeine back then, so I used a whole lot of it. But
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I also love, like, as we start to land this though, but I love the undertones. Like I actually love how ubiquitous the principles around writing a book are in relationship to marketing or speaking or coaching or even selling a product. Like there are these, first principles that I think, whether you're listening to this and you ever want to write a book or you don't, every single one of these principles applies to any area of your business or even your life.
I have to stop here just for a second, George, and I
Go.
want to applaud you for using ubiquitous correctly. That's impressive.
Yes.
Ubiquitous is a fairly new word for me. I had to look it up like 5 or 6 years ago. So I am bravo.
Yes. I am working so hard to get
Good
my
for you.
gold star today.
That's a good one. And I love that word. It's one of my favorite words.
That is one of those words. I don't know what the word is to describe it, but it just feels good to say. Like it
Yes,
rolls off the
exactly.
tongue.
Yes, I was just thinking that right before you said it. I'm like, I just love how it feels to say it.
Mhm. Yeah, because I don't think there's many words that like start with you and then have a Q in the middle of them that you're like, oh, I'm so stoked to spell
To
this or
say
say this. And I even know
Yeah,
how to
it
spell it
really
because
is
I do write it.
delightful. It's like a big truffle of chocolate. It
That,
just
yeah,
feels good to say. Yeah, I love it.
100%, 100%. Now, I wanna start landing this, but you
Okay,
wrote a book. Actually, can you
I
tell
did.
everybody what your book is called?
My book is called How to Write a Book That Sells You, and
Mm,
it's how and then the subtitle is Increase Your Income, Credibility, and Impact. And really, I wrote it primarily for people, obviously, who want to write a book to grow their brand and their business. Uh, and I go everywhere from how to figure out what kind of book your natural personality is most inclined to lean towards writing. I do like a little author personality test in the beginning because our minds work differently, and if you can manage to write a book, there's only 4 ways to structure a functional book. So I connect the author personalities to the different ways to structure a book. And then I get into like, how do you come up with the concept? Like, what do you need to be thinking about? How do you know who your ideal reader is? How do you know how to focus your book? And then I get into the writing, and I give my top 10 writing pitfalls and how to avoid them. And that's also the Bible that any writer I hire for my ghostwriting team has to master also.
mhm,
So the
uh-huh.
book, and I guess that's another point too. So I not only, when it was just me, I used the book as a primer for clients, and I still do. But now I also use it as a primer for people who join my organization, so that they can understand where I'm coming from, and what we do, and you know my ideas on how to do it. And it also goes into the publishing process. It goes into the different publishing routes. And oh, dare I announce this? I am going to be producing a second edition. Oh, this is
It's
news,
announced. I'm not
George. I have
editing it
not
out.
said this to anyone yet, and now
I'm
I
not
have to
editing
do
out,
it.
so it's real. It's real.
Now I
Stayed in.
have to do it. Yeah, we're getting that process started, so I think that'll be a 2026 thing.
Okay.
And we're
Okay.
going to
So
bring in
then,
some interesting things, like we're going to talk about AI, and we're going to talk about, actually, my first book came out in 2014, so a lot has changed. Like you were talking about publishing routes and stuff, so we're going to get more into different tiers of hybrid and vanity presses and things like that. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And I think, for everybody listening, and where can they get that book, Robin?
That's available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. And yeah, how to
Okay.
write a book
Okay.
that sells you. Yeah.
And
Thank you.
is it linked on your website too, worldchangingbooks.com?
Yeah, there's a thing for it on there. There's like a
Okay.
little somewhere on there. I am a terrible marketer, George. This is why I wrote it really for my clients, because
It's okay. Your personality and authenticity and intimacy that you create in conversations does your marketing for you. So I'll handle this part, which by the
oh,
way, you
thank
guys
you.
know I'm
Thank
a
you.
I'm a I'm a geek when it comes to this stuff. Her website's actually like super fun to navigate. Like when we connected the first time, I was like, I love your website.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
from a user experience perspective. So, for anybody wondering too, like if you've ever thought about publishing a book or you have an established business and you're like, God, I've been meaning for this, or I have these ideas, I highly recommend like reaching out to her and her team. And that URL is worldchangingbooks.com, correct?
Thank you. Yes, that is
You're so
correct.
welcome. You're so welcome. And so, I wanna we're gonna have to sometime in the future, maybe after summer, but this conversation flew by for me, like
I know,
flew
me
by.
too.
I just looked up and I was like, oh, I got like 45 minutes left. I'm like, no, I don't. Okay. So one of two things is going to happen. Either you and I just had the best conversation we enjoyed and nobody else enjoyed it, or everybody else that went by in the blink of an eye and like kudos, we created intimacy. I love that.
There we go. We did create intimacy. Yeah.
So I'm actually really excited to ask you this question. So it's kind of like the last question I ask
Okay.
most people, but I'm curious, right? I just envision like we've spent an hour. For anybody listening, thank you for spending this time with us. It's intimate time that you can't get back. But there's so much wisdom in what you shared, and also wisdom in who you are and your experience, and in every way from life to the way that you see things in your perspective. And I'm curious, I ask everybody, like, imagine everybody listening got Men in Blacked and had their memory erased and they couldn't remember anything that we shared. But you have the ability to tattoo wisdom on their soul that they'll take with them forever.
Oh my
And in
God.
this moment, just for 30 seconds, a minute, whatever feels on your heart, it could be one line, could be a paragraph, could be a thought. What would your tattoo wisdom be for everybody listening that you would love for them to take with them now and forever?
It would be true to yourself and be true to your truth and share it while you're here, because we're not going to be here forever.
Mm.
And this you have a huge opportunity to share and give value to people. And even if you're afraid to share, sometimes, especially if it's something you're afraid to share, something you're afraid you'll be judged for, know that by your sharing, you will heal others, because they'll know that they're not alone.
Wow. That is a great way to wrap and land the plane. And the one that I'm going to write down and remember because I love it: be true to yourself, but be true to your truth. And I'll let everybody sit with that one and unpack that. But that's a go sit with quiet time with God and like really unpack that one, because I think that there's some wisdom imparted in that one. And so, for everybody listening, at minimum, go check out her book, look at the cover, and see if the
Yes.
cover entices you to click on what's
Does the
on the
cover look,
inside.
as long as it doesn't look self-published, I'm fine with it.
There we go. There we go. And check out World Changing Books. And I'm sure you can tell, Robin has a heart for this. She literally helps people navigate this from the strategy. She was honest about who should and shouldn't. And truthfully, the first time, not truthfully, for the first time, I've heard a publisher or somebody helps be really authentic with people about who shouldn't write a book and how to use it appropriately and leaving your legacy. And so this episode is one of those like loaded with wisdoms at multifaceted levels, whether it's in books, whether it's your videos, whether it's your podcast, your creative process, and how you communicate with your team. All the principles that were talked about are applicable in every single
Mm,
one of those buckets and areas. It just so happens they make for a really beautiful book as well. And so the thing that I would say is the biggest fear of an author is our books becoming shelf help. And I say this on this podcast often. Don't let anything you heard today that inspired you or resonated with you or even tickled you to become shelf help. Let
mm.
today in this episode be the reason to try it, to shift it, to fix it, to ask for feedback, to pressure test it, to let go of assumptions, to change your language, to create intimacy in your content, to start documenting your legacy. But let today be the day that you start and let Robin's words help you. And then you know where to find her. So, Robin, thank you so much for coming on the show.
George, my heart is full, and thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's a pleasure. So, for everybody listening, it's been another episode of the Mind of George Show. Lots of laughs, lots of school time. And now you know all my little verbal tics that I'm working on. So, you can call me out. So, I will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, have a beautiful day and God bless.